viewers, and welcome back to Just Your Fantastic. It is Monday, May the 4th as I'm recording this, so happy Star Wars Day in the past, and may the 4th be with you and your loved ones. Now that I think about it, this would have been a really good time to do that "we need to talk about Star Wars" vlog idea that I've been kicking around. Wasted opportunity. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about my complicated relationship with the popular mega monster that is Star Wars. I am here with an update about my experience of coronavirus in South Korea. Strap in, folks. I've got a bad feeling about this. In this update, I'm gonna be real honest with you, but it's gonna get better. As with most of my vlogs, I have written a script. Normally I try my best to do these vlogs in chunks of memorized bits so it doesn't look so much like I'm reading off of a script, but I usually am. And in this update I have a lot to say, and I have a lot of really difficult things to say. And when you have difficult things to say, I want to make sure that they come out right. So I will be reading more or less directly from the script. So if this doesn't seem so off the cuff, but I assure you it is candid. So in the past month, my brain has been rewired for the collective trauma that we have all felt. I have always had a plan. I always needed to be 5, if not 10 steps ahead in my plan, but in April, everything changed. Slowly at first, and then suddenly, and I struggled to cope with those changes and losses. I swung from being a proactive planner to being a reactive pinball, just zipping all over the place from one perceived crisis to the next. And I say perceived because, to borrow a phrase from a colleague, I was objectively good. I was lucky. Unlike friends and family in the UK, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, or the United States, I was never forced into a lockdown. And unlike most of my colleagues here in South Korea, our main teaching program continued with a few mild restrictions. I only had 1 week of online classes when the government pressure caused our institute to initiate a work from home policy. And while that week was certainly stressful and had lasting consequences, we knew it was temporary. And we had the benefit of already having a rapport with our students, something that many of my colleagues who were just beginning a new school year did not have the luxury of. And segue into my reflection from that 1 week online learning experience, that was my key learning from that. That considering the emotional needs of our trainees was crucial to maintaining the relationships we had established before the switch to online classes. Managing their expectations and gauging their capacity to engage in an immersion program while they were at home with their families and had other responsibilities was more important than covering the content of my lessons. My other key learning didn't come until a few days ago when I was chatting to a friend about something quite unrelated, but which was totally applicable to my reflection. She said that often something in our lives might only be 40%, but we give it an 80% weighting. And that amplifies its effect on us. And in my reflection, I'd realized that I was giving the negatives a much larger weighting. I'd only made one mistake in one of my lecture videos that I pre-recorded for the online classes. But when a trainee called me out on it, I was gutted and felt like a complete failure for making a single simple mistake. For days after this this incident, I couldn't think about everything I'd done right because all of my focus was on that one tiny thing that I'd done wrong. And that mistake, if I'd made it in a physical classroom, wouldn't even register. But the online environment and the hyper-focus of my reflection on it gave it an 80% weight when it was only 10% of the process within the bigger picture. So to make a long story short, I needed to be aware of my weightings of things. And this is a good reminder both for professional and personal things as we move back to the objectively good comment. I know I was lucky. I really have nothing to complain about. But there were so many days that I wanted to fall apart. I walked around for days with a looming pressure behind my eyes that were unshed tears, just always on the edge of coming out. I couldn't concentrate, my memory was totally shot, I couldn't sleep at night. I felt so isolated and alone in a cage of my own making, and it took a heavy toll on my well-being and my relationships. I was not a nice person or a good leader or a kind friend at this time. My behavior became unpredictable, my temper got shorter, and I made disparaging comments about my coworkers that I am not proud of. It's going to be hard work to repair that damage, but I am going to try my best because I have to keep moving forward. There is a self that we project and a self that we hide. I, like many others, hate being vulnerable. I really struggle to be open and honest, and I know communication, authentic, unscripted, interpersonal communication is one of my greatest weaknesses. On social media, it is so easy to post an inspirational picture or share a self-care checklist or tell a poignant story about your personal history with anxiety. But it is another thing entirely to fully embody those values and live them in our everyday social encounters day after day after day. It is easy to be kind and compassionate and put together on the internet. It is a slog to be those things in real life every day. And as the lockdowns in other countries continued, and the government reminders here kept extending social distancing guidelines, it became harder and harder to keep my anxious, lonely, insecure self hidden away. I felt myself unraveling despite a number of successes and positive experiences. I was giving the negatives too much weight, and I was drowning. But I forced myself to sit down and journal, something I cannot recommend enough, and something I stopped doing on April 15th. But once I'd sat down and journaled, which helped me to navigate my feelings, I reached out to friends. I asked for their help in processing these emotions that I have difficulty processing on my own, and we worked out solutions together. My headaches went away, the problems became solvable. I worked out a tentative plan to get myself back on track. April was rough, and I am determined to make May better. Moving on to those positives that I assured you were coming. We're putting the peak end rule in practice. It's a science thing, look it up. Positive number 1, I attended COTEASL's first ever online national conference. It was exciting and interesting, and I learned a lot. Big congratulations to the organizers and fellow presenters who put on a fantastic online conference. You did an amazing job. Thank you. Positive number 2. I wrote an article for COTESOL's The English Connection magazine about my teaching philosophy and how it has changed in the 10 years since I obtained my Bachelor of Education. Spoiler alert, it hasn't changed much. But that was an amazing reflection piece that I am super proud of. See, being published, positive number 3. I also put together a video submission using Screencastify for COTESOL's Voices, a monthly publication that focuses on the human side of teaching. That article was about how COVID-19 has impacted my above-mentioned teaching philosophy and teaching practices. I'm also super proud of that achievement. Thank you again, Lindsay Heron, for giving me the opportunity. But possibly the greatest achievement of all came in the form of feedback from a trainee during one of our extracurricular activities. I was teaching a baking class how to make beer bread, and this trainee told me, "I love attending your classes. It feels like healing time." My heart. This is why I teach. So clearly, there were a lot of positives in a month that felt absolutely dismal while I was living through it. Looking back now, I can see that I was way too focused on all the wrong things. But things are definitely looking up. These days, South Korea is reporting fewer and fewer cases of community transition. Huzzah! We just got the announcement today that students will be returning to schools on a staggered schedule. So middle and high school students will be returning May 20th and 27th, and then elementary students will be returning around that time as well. So that's exciting. But it could also potentially mean another outbreak. I really hope that it does not. But positivity is a choice that I make, and I have to keep making every day until we are safely through this crisis. But I'm still gonna have bad days. I have to let myself have bad days. I apologize for the length of this video. I know it is super long, and I am so sorry, but it all needed to be said. But I do not apologize for this amazingly terrible Star Wars joke that I'm going to end on. What do you do with a dog on Endor? You take it for an Ewok. And that's the end. You're welcome. Thank you for listening. Stay safe, stay sane, and stay just short of fantastic.